Oh, man. How's everyone doing? You having a good B-sides? Woo! Yeah. So, we're going to have an experiment real fast because this is a pen testing talk, and whatever goes wrong. Okay, Google. Ha! We got one in the back. So, okay, Google, how do I red team GSuite? Our presenters today are two fantastic pen testers, and they find these bugs that people don't know how to fix anymore because they're that awesome. We've got Beau, who does podcasts every day of the week, basically. He's got CoinSec, Black Hills, InfoSec. He's got Security Weekly. I'm sure I'm forgetting Hacker Diaries, and there's even more.
Close enough.
I mean, yeah, I know. There's so many that you do. And then we have Mr. Mike Felch. You stay ready. And he is the chief breaker for OWASP Orlando, and he is a heavily involved community man. And without further ado, let's bring up Beau and Mike. Give them a round of applause. Good luck.
All right. Okay, Google. Any more? No? So we are red teamers, as the title kind of suggested, and we've been kind of going up against a lot of Google environments as of late. So we thought, there's not really a good methodology out there for attacking organizations that use GSuite. We're seeing more and more of them use it. We're seeing, a lot of people moving from on-prem provided services to using cloud services like O365 and GSuite. So this talk, we'll kind of walk through some of that stuff. Who we are.
Yeah, he already said it. We're pen testers, red teamers for Black Hills. We both kind of do CoinSec podcast, which is a cryptocurrency security podcast, and Tradecraft Security Weekly, which is kind of Beau's baby. And then I help with OWASP, but we haven't done that in a long time lately. And then B-Sides Orlando as well.
And this is a picture of us in a network closet that we snuck into on a pen test. We got cozy in there. Seriously, no, we were in there for like a good 20 minutes.
We closed the door, yeah.
Like looking through all these different network diagrams. They had like the sign-in sheet for people that nobody had signed into.
We didn't sign in.
Yeah, we didn't sign in. It was fun though. So yeah, if you are interested in learning more about cryptocurrency, we got CoinSec podcast. I am an avid OA enthusiast. If you are familiar with anything that I've ever done, CredSniper is one thing we'll talk about today in regards to Google now, but it is a tool for attacking OA as well.
So if you guys seen the Wild West Hack and Fest talk, we said that we loved Google, and we do, but we kind of broke up. Not really sure, it's a little complicated, so, but we're just putting it out there because we, as we're going into this, it's not like we're trying to throat punch anybody. But at the same time, we're hoping to get some awareness going and then also have some conversations with them to see if we could kind of restore a relationship. And we'll get more into the details in a second, but it's kind of what that's all about.
So what are we covering today? We're going to kind of walk through an entire attack process against Google's GSuite environment. So starting out with OPSEC, first off, finding out if the organization actually uses Google, cracking the quote-unquote perimeter of Google environments, doing some social engineering, and that's actually going to be a big section of this because there's some really interesting social engineering techniques that we're going to talk about that are not just phishing with emails. It gets a little bit more interesting when we go through Google's method of doing it. We're going to talk about persisting and hiding in plain sight, basically, to maintain access. And we're going to do a couple demos, praying to the demo gods. I think we killed enough chickens this morning. I think.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
But, we'll see how that goes. And then defending at the end of it. We'll actually throw some blue team stuff in there so that it's not just us, telling you how everything's broke.
All right.
OPSEC or die trying.
Cool. So this is like ultimately how to lose a fight with Google SOC. So I say that because I was just on a red team a couple weeks ago We made some headway, super secure environment, really great customer. Everything was going really well for them and then eventually for us. But what ended up happening was I was trying to keep it above board, and I was trying to keep my Black Hills account tied to the API. And what ended up happening was the customer contacted the Google SOC, and then they triaged the incident together. By the way, if you are a GSuite customer and you are an executive or you work with the teams, if Google SOC asks you if you're being pen tested, tell them yes, don't tell them no. Because what ended up happening was Google SOC traced back all of my burner accounts all the way back to the API, and then they suspended my Black Hills account.
So Mike disappeared for a few days, like just gone. And like we normally, we talk through like Hangouts and stuff all the time, and he's just gone. I'm like, where'd Mike go? And then he pops up this message to me one day that says, "Oh yeah, guess who's back?" And I'm like, "Got it back." Wait, don't get me banned by association, man.
Yeah. So it turns out they were able to trace everything back to all of my accounts, all of my burner accounts, all of my API accounts, and they just suspended all of them, which also meant that it suspended all of our internal access to the customer that we were testing. So with that being said, if you don't want to lose a fight, we suggest that you should probably not use your normal account. And we'll get into some of the other details about it. But if you do want to lose a fight, then focus on using your account. Make sure you reuse accounts with IP addresses, and make sure that your API keys are tied to all of them. Make sure you use the same browser sessions so they can always track back, and guaranteed to end up like this. But to do the good stuff.
So yeah, if you want to have a little bit better OPSEC, go buy a burner phone with a prepaid, go get a prepaid gift card. Actually sign up for your Google account using a burner phone number. That way, it's not traced back to your phone number, which is tied to all your other Google stuff. I mean, there's actually a lot of indicators that we were trying to figure out, like what exactly they're using, not just IP address. Like, they're using a few other things, like even like backup email accounts to tie specific accounts that you sign up with together to go ban everything that you've ever used. When I did the keynote here in Orlando a few years ago, and I did a whole part on non-attribution and how to basically like get around the system getting caught. And this was part of it. So, getting a burner phone, getting a prepaid gift card. I mean, yes, like you might run the potential of somebody, like at Walmart where you buy it, like having you on camera, like walking up in like a shady hat and paying with cash or whatever. But if you can always money mule that, I guess, and have somebody else do it for you. So yeah, prepaid smartphone, prepaid credit card. VPNs are huge, right? Like, obviously don't just attack an organization straight from your home IP. That's gonna end up being bad for you. And it's easy. You can go buy VPSs with Bitcoin. You can buy it with other stuff. Clean virtual machines, a brand new, like, boot up your Linux distro or whatever you're going to use from USB, go to Starbucks, connect to Wi-Fi, VPN somewhere, maybe throw that through Tor, and then worry about starting to attack the organization. New Google identities for everyone you obviously want to attack, because you don't want to like cross-contaminate like something that you previously burned with a new account. All right.
Cool. So cracking the perimeter, we're going to talk about now moving into actually gaining access to the GSuite. And we'll talk about a lot of different techniques. But one of the first things that I really wanted to bring up is, as a red teamer or a pen tester, what's the first thing that we want to do? We always want, like, let's send a malicious doc with a DDE payload or with some other malicious payload.
Interpreter session 1 established.
Yeah, and hoping that they're going to run some malicious doc that is going to bypass all of the endpoint security and the mail gateway and all of the other security controls that are in place and get that shell, right? But why are we doing that? We have to start asking ourselves, why are we focusing on just doing the same stuff every single time on every engagement? And so instead of doing that, when you're looking at a cloud environment, if you're doing your reconnaissance, you'll know that like they might be using AWS. And so if they're using AWS, why are we going external to go internal just to go back external? So really understand your customer or the targets that you have that you're working with, and then decide on an attack path. Because by doing it from that perspective, you're going to be able to strategically provide value to your customer as a real-world attacker, and not just like another pen test company that's just throwing payloads at the company and getting blocked. And one of the things that I've really been putting a lot of focuses on with my red teams and my pen tests is creds are king. We talk about shells a lot. We talk about doing all these different things. But I've learned that if I just have credentials to one account, I could more than likely compromise the entire environment. And it's because I'm not relying on tools. I'm not relying on trying to pop a shell and try to pivot to AD and do all these things. These are great things to do, but if I'm looking at it from a red team perspective, I want to focus on what's going to make it best for that customer. And so sometimes it's not trying to do a shell. It's literally trying to get creds, because if you can get creds, then you'll see what's going to happen here on how just having one cred can actually make a big difference. Absolutely,
and also just having the access to the level of data that somebody that you spearfish, like a developer, the types of stuff they have. I mean, we're going to talk about it more, but like specifically, so this isn't Google related, but with like OA environments, you can find open inboxes where somebody has straight up just gave delegation to their inbox by just having a single cred. And it makes it really easy to go through like an entire organization's global address list and find out how many people just wide open their inbox to everyone at the company.
So another thing that we do too a lot, I mean, obviously with MailSniper and OA, is password spraying. And so with password spraying, if you can identify the naming convention of the email addresses that the company is using, and you do your research on what DNS settings do they have. Are they using like Office 365? Or are they using Google? Or are they on-prem? Or if you can identify their mailing system, then there's a highly likely chance, especially after today, that you'll be able to spray pretty much any environment. And so generate your email list. Go to LinkedIn, grab the usernames, using the naming convention, kind of put them together. And instead of trying to brute force an account, why don't you use all of the accounts with one password, like Spring 2018. And you're pretty much guaranteed, depending on the size of the company and the organization, that when you spray, if you test one password against all the accounts, you might just get one cred. And so the idea behind that is the only real concern is, you really have to start rotating IPs. And so bear in mind, we just need one account. So I think we go into the demo next. So I know we have some Amazon people here in the house, friends of ours. But I'm going to show you a tool real quick that we put together to use AWS Lambda to actually do password sprays. And you could do it pretty much against any of them. So the idea here is we have some code that basically what it'll do, hopefully you could read that. It's called CredKing, and the idea is that it will go off and create AWS Lambda functions, which are basically serverless compute. And the idea is that you could put your code into AWS Lambda, execute that function call, and it will actually rotate it. Because the way that we do it is it goes off, creates all the Lambdas, creates the role, loads all of the credentials into a file, and you see right here we have a success, we have a hit. And then it actually cleans up for you, so we're not leaving these artifacts in AWS Lambda, so the Amazon team doesn't have to go back and clean up stuff later. And so the idea behind that is every one of these are pushed into a region, right? So we have, so the way that that reads, and bear in mind we have that credential, so we're going to use that credential later. But what we have here is we have a way to spin up AWS Lambdas in all different regions of AWS, and we can rotate IPs from that perspective. So by taking your Python code, throwing it into an AWS Lambda, and that being deployed all around the world, now you're rotating IP addresses, and we could just spin up password sprays for everything. And this actually works against Google, which is actually pretty interesting because Google's a really hard one to spray.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of AWS Lambda spraying with CredKing. Oh, yeah. OK, so now we're moving into the Ruses, right? So now there's so many awesome Google technologies that they provide, right? So one of the ones that I really like to use is a Google Group. So if you're familiar with Google Groups, you could, as an employee, you can create your own Google Group. And by creating it, you could also change the way that your name displays in the Google Group. And the other cool thing is, hidden in the managing of the Google Group is a way that you could directly add a Google user to that group, and they don't have to accept the invitation. Now, normally, you'd send them the invite, they'd accept it, they'd click the little link, and everything would be good. But in this case, you could actually force them by doing it, and you could also customize the message. And in that message, when you customize it, you could actually include a link, and that gets rendered in the Gmail account. So go ahead and go to the next one. And so this is what it looks like. I created a Google group called Google.com Security, and it's kind of a little bit difficult to see, but over here you look, and I was able to embed a malicious URL in the Google group that got sent to the user, and it looks like it came from Google.com. You can't tell that it actually was somebody with just a regular old Gmail account. Now, depending on the ruse and depending on how you're doing it, somebody's going to click that link, especially if they don't even know. It looks good. It looks coming from Google. Everything's A-OK. Yeah.
So this one, I feel like this one's the dirtiest. I don't know, maybe 2 from now, but this one's super dirty. So Google Hangouts. This one's probably my favorite ruse of all that we've got so far. But so do you remember this? Like, so if you ever used Gmail previously and somebody like wanted to chat with you, you used to get this little invite pop up. It used to say like, hey, this guy wants to be able to chat with you. Is that okay? Yes or no? So apparently that was too much work for some users because they kind of removed that now. And so by default, a default Google setup now allows anyone to just open up a chat box with you if they have your email address.
It just pops up.
It just pops up. So that's kind of bad because that means like I can make my account look like Google Security. Look, I literally just changed my name to Google Security, create a little Google icon, and now Google Security has a conversation with me. I mean, think about like, pretending to be like another contact of the user that you're trying to target, pop up a message, and then phish through that. Get them to click something that they're trusting somebody just from a chat box, and it's not an email, it's not a phone call, it's a chat. And you have direct access to somebody. So for GSuite organizations, where you can go figure out every user just by doing recon through LinkedIn, you develop some sort of specific target, spearfish them through a Hangouts ruse. Now, you can go and modify that to make it so that you do have to require an invitation. But even then, it looks like a spoofed account like that. It looks super good. Look, Google Security wants to have a new chat with me. I mean, it looks legit. Like, it doesn't say like that it's some random email address. It just says Google Security. And then the other thing that we thought was kind of disturbing is there's no like global option to go turn that on for an organization. So if you've got like 10,000 GSuite users, you can't just go say everybody requires invite to chat with. They have to go manually add that, and they can go manually change it themselves. So you can enumerate those really easy too. Like, if you want to check if somebody has the invite part enabled, all you have to do is just click Add New Chat, type their email address in, and if it pops up this box on the right where it says Start a Conversation with, that means they have it required for you to send them an invite. If it just pops up the little chat box, you're having a conversation with them. Okay, this is another one. So the Google Doc Ruse. So this one is kind of similar in the sense that, similar to the Google Groups one, in the sense that we're trying to get Google to send the phishing email for us. So the way this goes is go create a Google Doc with a name like, critical update pending. Add your content to it, make it look legit, and then you know how you can add like a comment to a Google Doc? So on the right side, you add a new comment, and then you just like @ them. Like you just add the user, like tag them in the comment, and then it will send them an email notifying them that they have something to go check out for this Google Doc. So like, let's say we had this plain Google Doc here that I created that's the Google Terms of Service. And Google Security, who created Google Terms of Service, created a link that goes to the Google shortener, and it happened to say your account will be deactivated unless you review the updated Terms of Service located here immediately. And then tag, like I tagged my own email here, beau@dafthack.com. And then I got an email from docs.google.com that has the malicious link in it that says my account will be deactivated. It looks like it came from Google Security.
So that brings us to the Google Calendar ruse. This is my absolute favorite.
Okay.
This is my favorite.
All right.
You don't think so?
No,
you can
no,
take it. No,
it's-
you can
no,
take
it's-
it.
no,
No,
it's-
you
yeah.
take it. No, take it. I'm just saying this is an amazing one.
It is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So we have all
because there is a legit vulnerability here.
Yes.
That Google's not fixing, which we'll talk
Yes.
about.
Go ahead, take it.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
all
so
you.
the Google Calendar. So the interesting thing with phishing, right, is you have to look legit. You have to trigger a response. You have to create the urgency, like send me all money right now and we're good. And it has to go undetected, otherwise SOC's going to shut you down. And we also remember that all the employees are trained whenever they sign on with a company to make sure that they don't click the certain red flags in an email. And so instead of sending an email, why do we even do that anymore? Let's inject events, and this is so much fun. So with calendar event injection, it actually will add a calendar event to your calendar silently. Okay, so you'll never know. until you get the urgent alert that says, hey, you got 10 minutes before your meeting, and you're freaking out because you didn't know about your meeting. Oh yeah, by the way, also in that meeting invite says, required, please read the agenda. And now you're really freaking out because you have to do something and you only got 5 minutes. The other thing is you could actually mass exploit the entire organization. So you could just add all of them to the invite, and next thing you know, you could even make it, because you're the one creating the event, where nobody could see the other people that are on the event. And then you just litter the calendar in the future with these events, and things are really, really good. Because now, once they see that alert, their phone is going off, their refrigerator is going off, their computer is going off, their TV is going off with these alerts that say they have a calendar event. Yeah.
So the easy way to do this is like just legitimately just open up the app and just add a new event, and just click Don't Send Invite, and it will add that event to their calendar silently. Like, that's the manual way to do it. I mean, it's a feature.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to send them an invite.
Yep.
But there's another way to do it.
Yeah. So the other thing is, so we disclosed this last year to Google in October, and at first they accepted it. They said, yes, this is a privilege escalation because it's to another person's calendar, blah, blah, blah. And so they silently implemented a security feature. They never responded to our notice, but they actually added a feature to Google Calendar, which makes it so that you can make it for other people not to auto-add it to your event. The problem with being able to turn the feature off is any events that were already on your calendar get removed, which nobody can do, so you can't really use it anyway. But the other thing was we use the API, because if you use the Google API with an API cred from cloud.google.com, you could actually automate this whole process and add that the victim has already accepted it. Why, I have no idea. But in the API, there's a flag that if you turn on and say true, it marks them as already have accepted it, but it gets worse because they also give you the ability to add a comment as if the other person commented already. So you could inject the event, mark it as already accepted, add a comment saying, hey, I'll be there tomorrow, and life is good. And so Google implemented that fix, but the Google API actually bypasses that security setting. So even if you have it turned on, you don't have it turned on because the Google API bypasses it. And this came in January from Google on the response, and they said that they're not fixing it because it's going to impact too many users with the API. So I figure until everybody sees the seriousness of this, they're just going to leave it out there.
Yeah, so think about that. Like, anybody on the planet that has a Gmail account, you can inject events into their calendar. Any of them. It's kind of terrifying. Yeah.
And you don't know which ones are in yours already. Yeah. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is personalized phishing. Now, we talk about phishing all the time, right? Everybody talks about it. But if we looked at it from the perspective of we're going after creds, right? We only care about creds. The typical attack path, right, is you get them to click a link, you go to the page, you ask them for their username, you ask them for their password. But we're up against really secure organizations, and most secure organizations mean they have a strong password policy, and that means they also have two-factor enabled by default for all their users. And so I was on an engagement and had to deal with that and didn't know what to do at first. And so we heard all the typical ones, right? Like, well, maybe if I spoof their GSM phone and then I can get the two-factor token to a spoofed phone, all that stuff. I mean, that's great and all if you could actually pull that off without violating and getting federal time. The way to do it is to spin up and just ask them for it. They're super nice. If they're giving you their password, they're going to give you the two-factor token anyway, right? So the first thing that we do is we trick them using the ruses that we've just talked about to go to our phishing page. The phishing page is actually a clone of the Gmail page or whatever custom page that they have. We ask them for their login. We ask them for their password. But what we do is we actually log in on the back end with their account. But when we log in through an automated fashion, it actually triggers the text message to go to their phone, right? Because we're on the back server, we have their login, their password, it triggers a two-factor. Then we send them to the two-factor page and say, hey, give me that code that just came to your phone. Because they think they're logging into Gmail, and they actually got their message, they put their two-factor code in, we just get their two-factor code. And then we send them on to wherever we really wanted them, which could have been just a dummy Google Doc or a go-to meeting or whatever. And so this kind of outlines that. But the way that we did it was, in Google, they're very nice. If you've ever put your email address in and clicked next, they load your image in the background on the next page. So we do all of that by hitting Picasa and then using your email address that they put in, hit Picasa, grab their avatar, or whatever you call those things now, profile images, and put it in the form. And then it's their password page, and it shows their icon. And it has to be legit, right? And so Google two-factor. This is, now we have the two-factor, we just have to deal with a bunch of different two-factors, right? We have the SMS, which is typically by default. Usually this is the easiest to roll out, so most organizations do it. We also have the one-time passwords with like Google Authenticator. Google recently rolled out this new one called Phone Prompt too, right? So if you have your phone and you have an Android or a Google account, it'll prompt you for to touch your phone. And then we have to deal with the dreaded UTF device, right? Because the hardware devices are super secure. Like everybody has them. I mean, I have one. These UTF devices, you have to have this plus the password. So how do we get this? Okay, so that's what we did. So what we did, we rolled out, if you want to go, is a few other things. Google now starts saying, hey, this is suspicious. So where was the last location that you logged into? Well, I geo-IP the address on the back end to the IP address, get their geo coordinates, and just type it in. The other thing is they've also started doing this thing where once you do log in, there's a red bar that goes across the top that says, hey, a suspicious device logged in. But if you clear that after you log in, it also clears it on the victim's page anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then, yeah. And so then the multiple field phone prompts will actually disable the phone prompt. So just be aware of this whenever you're doing this. Because if you go to the next one, we have a tool called CredSniper that we released last year. And everything that I just told you about loading the Google image, doing the two-factor, if you wanted to spin up your own page, you could literally just spin up your own page in a matter of minutes. All of that's done in CredSniper. It's using SSL, so it grabs Let's Encrypt certs and spins up the two-factor page. Because I did learn that if you try to use a phishing page with Google without SSL, they flag it and they turn your page red and say, this page is unsecure. But if you use SSL, they have no way to intercept it, and you're good. So that's what we're going after. We're trying to do the fetch profile, all that fun stuff. So go to the next one, and I'll show you. So which one looks real and which one looks fake? So one of these is real Google, and one of them are fake. But they look exactly the same. I mean, what do? Like, the image is there. Well, except for the one on the left. But the image is there, and sometimes that image doesn't load, right? So you go to the page, and Google just doesn't actually load it for whatever reason. And so it's actually the fake one's the real one, and the real one's the wrong one. So this is what CredSniper does for you and what it looks like. Okay, so now that we're in the account. So we password sprayed, just to recap real quick. We password sprayed, we got it a credential. We logged into the account, or we phished them, however we got in, we're in, right? So now we're there. And the first thing that I would suggest we do, this is what we do on a red team engagement, right? We pop a shell, we're trying to find a way to persist in case we lose access. Generate an app password. App passwords are really great because you can still log into the account as normal, but most people don't think about the app passwords.
Even if they change their own password.
Even if they change their own password, right? So you change your own password, your account gets triaged, they bring the account back up, and they're like, okay, everything's clear, but you have an app password that they didn't take care of, and so you have another backdoor into the account. But the problem with this is you still need two-factor, right? So you could grab the backup codes from the two-factor. So when you compromise the account and you backdoor the password, you also grab a copy of the backup codes, and now you can log in with the backup password and the backup two-factor tokens, and you should be good. But if that's not good, what you could end up doing is you can just enroll your device as a two-factor, right? So you got your own phone, you got your burner phone, you're already in the account, you might as well just enroll that device into there, because if they triage the account and they overlook devices that were added, you're going to be still good. This is usually the first one they go to. So I don't use this one a lot. I mean, I think I've used it, but just in case. But it's really, really nice if it goes undetected, because then you have a one-time password that's always good. So yeah, and then this is probably my favorite persistence mechanism that we use. You can go to the Google API, register for API creds, make sure you don't use your personal account, because this is where we get in trouble. And what you do is you generate a new application in their cloud.google.com console, enable API access, add all the scopes that you could have. The G Drive, you want calendar, you want to be able to check their email, you want to do all of these different things. If they're a Google admin, you want to add the Google admin.directory.user scope. Because by doing this, you now have a URL for that application. You're already logged into their account. You just go there and you grant access to your backdoor. And if you make it really nice looking, they're never going to know. I mean, this one says Mail Sniper API, but this could say help desk, company at help desk. And they're going to see that application in the background, and they may not think anything of it. Usually they don't even find these backdoors. And so then we have this other one, right? So we have the ability to also maybe backdoor an Android app. I would never suggest to publish an app in the Play Store that's malicious. I know we just got out of that other talk if you were in here and we were watching it in the back, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Because you could log into the victim's account, right? So you're logged into their work email, right? So you're on their work Gmail page. You go to play.google.com/store. You browse to the app that you did not inject into the App Store that did not get approved in 45 minutes. And you didn't sign up with a developer account with your vanilla prepaid credit card because it doesn't work. Don't do that. And you browse to the app. And if you have a Google device, right, what happens? It says install on device, right? So wait a second. You mean to tell me that I can install to the victim's device and pop a shell or do kind of all the other stuff? So yeah, that's a pretty bad idea. The next one, because I think we have another demo.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a little bit of a hiccup. Give this up here now. We had a little bit of a hiccup in that the Play Store was giving us a little bit of problems with our app, and I spent a lot of time, like last night and the night before, trying to get this app.
You mean hypothetically?
Hypothetically, yeah. So we should be able to pull this up here. So this is this phone right here. I will minimize this somewhat. Now, bear in mind, remember, we have credentials, right? Because we password sprayed already. So I'm going to log into a burner account. Yes, I'm a Walking Dead fan. Okay, don't look. That was the password that got sprayed, by the way. Okay, so I'm logged in, right? It's as simple as going to play.google.com.store. And what we're going to do for, everybody loves crypto mining, right? So we're going to turn the phone into an Electroneum crypto miner.
I like the
See,
background
that's all it
noise.
was. And there it goes. You see it in the top left over there in the corner. It's installing. So we basically just password sprayed, pivoted into the phone. There's Electroneum. And now we're mining crypto on the phone because they were able to be password sprayed. So
what else could you do besides just push a valid app?
this was really cool because all we had was their credentials, right? We just password sprayed, and now bear in mind, companies allow their employees to use personal devices, BYOD. We don't have most companies don't have BYOD policies, right? But so that's cool and all, and that could have been a malicious app or whatever we wanted. And this is what we were trying to get into the App Store. And
Hypothetically.
Oops. Don't hack me, bro. Yeah, all kinds of bad stuff here. Oops.
So do any of y'all remember the vulnerability with regard to pushing Outlook rules to a client-side device? So previously with Outlook, you used to be able to log in as an attacker after you gained access to a cred, create a malicious rule, and it would sync to the user's system. So we're kind of trying to do the same thing here, but now we're syncing to the person's phone.
Yeah, so this is a malicious app that we put together. We had some problems, but I'm going to push it through here. This is kind of cool because now I'm pushing it to the phone. Hopefully this will work, and then hopefully it will install. It's going to take a second. There it goes, maybe, hopefully. It's going, I promise. Maybe.
The demo gods are watching.
No, it's going. There it is.
Oh.
Popped it, boom. There we go, popping a shell.
Popping a shell.
Boom. Now we're on the phone, we're on the device. Cool. So imagine now how simple that is to just create a thread. Oh, and by the way, if you guys are like hackers out there and you guys hack your own phones and you have system installed, user, what is it, SU? I forget where it's at. Okay, it's Android, so screw it. But The point was here, we now have a malicious app in the App Store and on your phone. And bear in mind, you're bringing your own device to the corporate environment. So what, are you on the corporate network? Do you have security in place? Because now we can pivot from your phone and your device. We pop the internal perimeter as well, right? Yeah, so the other cool thing that we could do too with hiding in the account is we could also add email rules to delete alerts. Like if you just add no reply accounts at google.com or whatever, any security notifications will automatically delete them and they'll erase. So you don't have to worry about that. You could also add a recovery email. You could add a recovery phone number, so that way if you do get locked back out, you could just reset the password again. You can also create email forwarders. This is really awesome because once you do this, and you can see when the global SOC emails get sent to the employee, and so you can kind of get a heads up there. You can obviously add calendar events for others. So imagine using an internal account to add calendar events for other employees. That's super awesome. You could delegate accounts to another victim. So like, let's say you password spray 20 accounts, delegate all 19 to that one, and now you're there. And so you're good to go.
All right, so collateral damage. So all right, so we got access to an account. What is the point? What can you actually do with that? I mean, besides obviously get a shell, use it for access to a company network, potentially on a phone. In Google itself, people store a ton of things out there. They store a ton of data, company data. And so some things that we could first start out at looking at is, well, can we get the actual directory or the quote-unquote global address list from Google? So this is one of the things that we always do when we attack Exchange environments as well. So after we get access to one cred, usually, we can go just grab all the other email addresses or users from that environment and then do the same attacks against everybody now. So, whenever we start recon, we might only start out with like, a couple hundred accounts of like a, maybe like a 500 account environment or something like that, and get access to one account. Now go grab the other 300 accounts and then start the process over again, get access to more accounts. Searching through G Drive and Gmail, you can do the searching part through Gmail with MailSniper actually now. So you can actually go and search for sensitive things. So what about searching for just passwords? What if you don't have, let's say you do want to get remote access. Let's say that you determined that the jewels you want are internal and they're not like hosted in a cloud service. You might be able to go search for VPN information, maybe backup keys, AWS access keys and secrets to access AWS services.
Google Groups are my favorite. I know I said that before for like Ruses and stuff, but Google Groups are the most overlooked gem within GSuite. So if you're on an engagement and you have credentials, if you go to groups.google.com, you'd be surprised at what you have because DevOps team love automation. Developers love all kinds of stuff. We always, as a technical guy or engineer or whatever it is that you run in the tech, nobody likes going through help desk, right? Because you have to go to help desk, you have to submit a request, you have to get locked down, and you have to wait decades in order to get it. The politics are hard. Google Groups gives employees the ability to create their own groups, which means they get their own distribution email address, which means they could set cron tab to send all the reports and all the command line arguments to a Google Group mailing list. Oh yeah, by the way, it's searchable. Right? So you gain access, you go to the Google Groups, you start searching for access key. I love access keys. I love AWS because that's usually the way to go. You search for password, you search for root. And when there's cron jobs that are passing the command line arguments to these mailing lists, they're creating an email message that gets sent to the distribution group, which is archived in Google Groups. So they're not searchable, right? So you can't just be like, well, I want to go find all the Google Groups that are created for the organization, and I don't have access. But if you search the details of it, they'll provide you with all of the ones. So Google Groups are awesome. This is actually a screenshot from an engagement where I was able to find root accounts that were running on production Linux servers, all just in Google Groups, just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah, we were actually talking about it on the way over here about maybe writing a tool just to go enumerate the groups because it is, I mean, it's kind of blind, right? Like you don't have a list of everything that you have access to, but it's as simple as searching. So basically, we're talking about maybe just putting together a quick tool to go search and just enumerate everything. So this is one of the coolest things that Google lets you do. All right, so what if an attacker got access to your account and they could export everything you've ever searched in Google. They could export every single email you've ever sent. They could export every single Hangouts message you ever sent. They could get every single geolocation you've ever typed into Maps. That's a feature that
If you
Google
have
lets you do.
location turned on your phone,
Yeah.
it'll just track all your
All the routes.
your routes.
So takeout.google.com. If you go there, you can get all your Google data for free. Doesn't take long either. And you can also send that to external services. So like it wouldn't be too hard to probably go and use like some tool to automate, like going through a bunch of accounts and then having it actually send that data dump of sorts to like box.com or Dropbox. So like if you wanted to exfil it to like an external site, you can do that as well.
Or if you're really in for it and you know who the Google admin is, you fish them, right? Because you get Google admin, now you have access over all the users, you have access over all of the domains that are provisioned there and all the host names that come with that, so you can spin up your own if you want. You can access all of the, some of the files. I mean, it depends on how it is, but you have access to all of the files. You have all of the single sign-on, all of the authentication set up. If they're running two-factor, you could turn stuff on, turn stuff off. You could look at the devices, because there's all kinds of stuff within Google Admin that they give you functionality for. And it's pretty much just a really bad day all the way around. So triaging, so we've talked a lot about getting in and breaking stuff and how to hide, and that's a nightmare, right? It's scary to even think about because we're all, I mean, a lot of us are using Gmail in some capacity. So what do you do? How do we fix this? How do we triage accounts? Because I see it commonly overlooked. I'll be on an engagement, they will bust me. I will be busted. Yet when they triage the account and they turn it back on, they forgot about the backdoors. It's always overlooked. The first thing that I would say is log out of all sessions, right? Because if I'm still logged in and you don't log out of all the sessions, it's going to be bad. The other thing is then change the password, right? So don't just do it beforehand. Log out of sessions first, then change the password. Also generate new backup codes because you don't know if they're stolen and there's no real way to be able to tell. You can tell if they're used, but you can't really tell if they've been taken or not. And then also capture the IOC, even if it's just an IP address, right? So if you know that there's an indicator that one of your employees were compromised, grab the IP address, go to the Google Admin Console, and start some threat hunting. I'm sure there's more. Yeah, there's actually a lot more. So you need to remove app passwords. So if you're in there, remove all the app passwords that are there that are suspicious. Remove any weird two-factor devices. It's probably best just to remove them all and have the user re-enroll just to be safe. You should also remove any unauthorized apps, which is really hard, right? Because we make them look really good. So you should also remove any email forwarders. You shouldn't allow employees to forward emails outside of the domain either, right? So I see that a lot. They don't turn that off where I'm just forwarding all of their company emails to a Gmail account. Just doesn't make any sense. Remove the email filters. I mean, you don't have to go through all of them, but you need to remove the ones that are malicious or that are hiding malicious activity. Remove the bad Android apps. This one's really this one's hard. I mean, what do we do? We don't necessarily have access to the user's device, so we have to kind of figure this one out. I don't even really have a solution for that one, how to do it easy. Also, remove recovery emails and phones, and then remove any bad account delegations. I'm sure there's more. This is the only things that I came up with in that one little sitting that we were doing.
So basically just delete the account.
Yeah,
it's a short version.
Just get rid of it and redo it. Yeah, so finding victims and monitoring. So if you can get familiar with Google Admin, then what you'll be able to start seeing is trends. There's a really cool tool called GAM. It's a Google Admin, and it's a command line tool to be able to interact with the Google API. It's awesome for red teaming as well. But it's really good for Google admins. And you can search by IP address in the console. And if you look up here, you'll see user 1, and you'll see how it's broken up. And you're going to start seeing the patterns, right? Because you see the person was presented with the login challenge twice, and then they logged in, and then they had another one, right? Because the first one I'm getting, and then I'm logging in on the back end, but I'm never completing that login. And so because I'm not completing it, it shows these little small trends where it's presented with the login challenge twice and then one login. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. We do have some questions. So if you're a GSuite user, I have some questions for you specifically. Does your BYOD policy give you the ability to test or audit security for corporate email and files that are on personal devices? It's one thing to grant access to an employee to use their personal devices with their company, but do you have insight into what files and what folders and what malicious stuff might be on that user's phone that could actually compromise your organization?
And so, what we talked about previously with phishing emails, that's the big thing that most training is focused on. Is don't click the link in the email, or don't respond, or don't worry more about the email and not these other little new things like a Hangouts message that pops up, or a Google Calendar event that gets injected in into your calendar. So teach the thought pattern across the user behavior to look at those indicators and not just email.
Yeah, and then on the password policy, I mean, we know password policies are bad if they're short passwords in an Active Directory environment, but equally as bad is your password policy on cloud providers. And so how strong is your password policy? Do you even know? Is it synced with ADFS? If, all of these different, not ADFS, Active Directory, I guess ADFS, how strong is your password policy? Because if it's sprayable, right, Spring 2018 with a capital and some numbers and it's long enough, that's a good password. People are using it. You'll be surprised. That's our go-to every single time.
My favorite password.
I'm sorry?
It's my favorite password.
Yeah. It's guaranteed. I guarantee it.
I have lots of accounts with that password.
Yes. Yeah. That each season it changes. And then my question to Google. This is like a big deal for us, and especially for me. It's kind of like a, GSuite customers. We need a process to be able to submit for approvals. Amazon is amazing. They do this great. We submit in AWS. Hey, we're going to do a pen test. We use AWS. Can you please give us permission? Sure. Give me the scope, the time, and the IP addresses, and we'll be fine. We're above board, right? That means I could pen test an AWS environment with my normal accounts. I don't have to go to Walmart and buy a prepaid credit card and a burner phone in order to create an account. It's a lot of time. We don't have that process in place. I think all cloud providers should follow the Amazon route with that, because we're not able to test. And here's what it causes. It causes now us to not be able to stay above board when we're testing. I would much rather have Google not calling the feds because they think a nation state's attacking this big customer, and that it may be me on the other end, but we have to test our customers. We're at risk here, and we can't do anything about it. So the question to Google is, can you please implement an engagement approval process? It doesn't have to be really big. Just let us send something and we'll be good.
That's it. Any questions? Come on up to the mic. We got a couple mics right here.
Not this mic, that mic.
Either one.
No,
here, yeah, you first.
Yeah, with the question you had for Google, did having your victim company whitelist in Google the IP address in which you're going to be attacking from help at all?
They didn't whitelist it because there's no process for that. So Google is not aware of a pen tester or a red team on a customer unless they magically seen it somehow. We actually ran into a problem because we have contractual agreements with customers to not disclose, and they have contractual agreements not to disclose. So when you're dealing with two SOCs, and you got Google SOC and you got customer SOC, and they're trying to triage this, what do we do? Because now Google's not responding. They think it's a nation state, or they're thinking it's a very sophisticated attack, and there is no symptoms of that. But the customer's scared to disclose to them that they're being tested, because they also want to test their SOC, but also because they have a contractual agreement not to break. At the same time, we do too. So we got stuck into a jam. We re-enabled my account, and they found out, and they re-enabled it, and then disabled our ability to re-enable it. That affects our business at this point. Could you imagine if it would have suspended the entire company because we're, that would have been a really, really big deal for us as a company. And so what do we do? Whose hand is this in? So that's difficult.
Whitelisting pen testing IPs yet?
If they do, it's not very public. We don't know about it. It's not public knowledge, or at least it's not in the pen testing circles that we've heard. If they do, then we should definitely know about it. They should make it more available. I don't know.
Thanks.
So I don't know if they do or not. I don't think so.
So two things real quick. Azure does have a pen testing authorization form as well, which is great.
Yes.
The second thing is, have you run into, so everything that you had with your mail sniper was for intercepting or post-X, where you could go in and delete notifications or delete alerts or whatnot. Have you ran into any engagements where their backup number or their backup email has given you away? So when I log into my Gmail account, I get new login events on both my primary as well as my backup.
That's a good question. So I haven't seen, so most of the accounts that I had, the recovery email was my email. So I don't remember seeing anything, but then again, I'm not monitoring my throwaway account anyway. So I haven't seen it really affect me. I mean, I've seen, the most that I've seen is some employees get alerted in some weird way, and then that might capture that. But if you're not cross-contaminating like IP addresses to the accounts that you compromise, what I like to do is when I compromise a account, I'll go to another VPS or I'll do some other, I won't log back into that account from that same IP. I'll switch VPN countries and then use the other ones, because if you get busted with one, you get busted with them all. So that's how I try to get around it. But I don't know about the recovery email. I don't think.
Any other questions? I think that's it. Thank
Cool.
you guys so much.